So over the past, say, 10 years, our leaders, that would be the Democratic Party, the so-called business community, and in fact, a lot of Republican leaders, have allowed into our country, against federal law and against our will, tens of millions of foreigners. Now, the question is, why have they done this? And by the way, we should say not just let them in, but paid for them to come, either overland through Latin America, through Mexico and our southern border, or by plane from the rest of the world. American citizens paid for that. And of course, when they arrive, they receive the entire suite of federal benefits, also at the expense of taxpayers. But the question remains, why? Why would you bring in this many people in such a short period against the law? Now, in previous generations, the motive was really obvious. Farmers, for example, wanted cheap labor. We needed the help, or that was the argument anyway. But no one is making that argument now because you can't make it. There is no economic justification for bringing in tens of millions of people with lower than average educational attainment and no modern skills. And that's exactly what we've done. Because, of course, we don't need the help at all. We don't have a manufacturing sector. Agriculture is largely automated. And of course, AI is about to render a lot of American workers obsolete, as jobs that people do will now be done by machines. So there is no way to justify on economic grounds mass immigration in 2024. So once again, why is it happening? And it's happening for political reasons. It's happening because the Democratic Party has ceased making the case for itself to Americans. And so in order to keep power, in fact, to expand their power and to preside over the one-party state that they desire, they're going to need a brand new electorate. And this is their electorate. Foreigners will choose your leaders. You're not allowed to choose the leaders of foreign countries, but foreigners will choose your leaders, including in this election, this 2024 presidential election. Well, how would that work? It's illegal, you say, for illegal aliens to vote in a federal election. Well, actually, it's not illegal, it turns out. Congress passed something in the U.S. code, the federal code, a line that, unbeknownst to the rest of us, makes it legal for illegal aliens to vote in federal elections if they believe they are citizens. It's a state of mind. Did you know that? We didn't know that. Most people didn't know that. Catherine Engelbrecht just found this provision in the U.S. code. That's the kind of thing she reads because she's the founder of True the Vote and has been working on these issues for a few years now. And she joins us to explain what she's found. Catherine Engelbrecht, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So would you mind explaining what seems at first blush a very far-fetched idea that the U.S. code, as of right now, as of our speaking, would allow illegal aliens to vote in the upcoming presidential election? How would that work?
Yeah, well, True the Vote, the organization I founded some years ago, has been long involved in looking at the accuracy of the voter rolls. And we've long maintained that inaccurate voter rolls lead to inaccurate elections. So with that as a backdrop, we've been very concerned about the lack of availability to determine citizenship status, not just by groups like ours, but by states themselves. They can't get close enough to a citizenship status database to make good determinations. That then led me to look a little deeper because, as you rightly lay out, there's a motivation here. So what might that be? We've seen many, many videos of people coming across the border who are talking about their excitement about voting for Joe Biden and claiming that they are citizens. But yet, we hear debates in Congress where the congressman will say, don't worry, non-citizens can't vote. It's a crime of perjury. It's a felony. So, okay. We took a deep look at the criminal code, and Title 18 left us just gobsmacked, because when you read all the way through it, as it lists all of the stipulations against non-citizen voting in federal elections and lays out the penalties therefore, scroll all the way down to the fine print, and what you read is that non-citizens can vote without penalty if at the time they are voting, they believe themselves to be U.S. citizens.
Well, I mean, that seems insane. I mean, I'm taking your word for it. I'm not a lawyer or an expert in the federal code. But is there any other crime, Like if I can show that I didn't know I was robbing a liquor store, I had a gun in my hand, I was demanding money, but I didn't really think it was robbery, does that shield me from being prosecuted for robbing a liquor store?
No, certainly not. But I will say that this state of mind idea is something that we've come up against in the past related to domicile. As we've done reviews of the voter rolls and you see people that are registered, but they're registered to vacant lots, they're registered to fast food restaurants, and the press you get back from the state as well, but residency is a state of mind. This takes that to an entirely different level. And I'll tell you what I'm really concerned about, Tucker, is that when we lived through 2020 and we saw the landscape change, lawlessness take hold, we watched on the sidelines and said, surely this can't be what it looks like is happening. Surely this move to the mass mail of ballots and unmonitored drop boxes and third-party election workers that have no proper training to support all of the ebbs and flows of process, surely this can't be what's about to play out. And then when it did, you're left with scant few days to try to pick up the pieces and prove what really happened. I'm seeing this now play out in 2024 on this issue, much the same. And so it's my hope that we can awaken Americans to this problem and demand accountability before November so that we can decide if citizenship is truly a state of mind.
So can I just ask about the law itself, the code that you're referring to? Do you think that suggests that the foreigner, because the proposition here is that we're allowing foreigners to choose our leaders, which is insane, of course. But is the law written in such a way that foreigner will not be punished for voting in our elections, but will that vote still count? Is that clear?
Well, it's a great question, but the ballots are anonymous. So once that ballot has been cast, either by mail and it's been separated from the envelope with which it's carried to the central count, so you can't tell who voted if that's been separated, the envelope from the ballot, and certainly by machine you can't tell. So no, there's no way to pull this back. It's why it is critical that we get on the front side of this and have a very national discussion about the tracks we're heading down. This is a very, very
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. The internet is crowded with interesting things that don't really matter. On TCN, we attempt to bring you interesting things that actually do matter, and a lot of them. Interviews, long form and short, videos, documentaries. You can find all of it on tuckercarlson.com, and we hope you will.